And we are live. Live to the world, and live to the Asper Jewish Community Center in Winnipeg. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome everyone here.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hi, how are you guys doing? We have Murray, Shelly, and Rocky, and Rabbi Anibal. Too bad my wife couldn't come today because it's my mother-in-law's birthday and they're preparing the lunch, which I had to join them right after the class. Okay, so
Not a hardship.
Are we invited?
I don't know. I don't know. I would text her, but then I have to pray that she would answer. No, she answered fast. I sometimes take a little longer, and my son, I never understand kids. He goes to sleep with the device. He has breakfast with the device. He takes it to the bathroom. He almost to the shower and everything. But then when I call him, he never answers.
He's practicing to be a senior, Rabbi.
I guess. So let's see who is in the chat today. Donna is here. Welcome. Jiku is back with us. Welcome, David and Brenda Grossman, Maggie Harris, and Karen Farkas. And Clyde is here as well. Brenda, good eyes. She said, "Is that snow that I see behind you?"
Winter Wonderland.
Let's show to our friends who, I don't know, it depends where they are. They may not even know what snow looks like. Yeah, this is not a prop. This is real snow. Usually I was told when I came to Winnipeg that the first snowfall was always after Halloween.
That's right.
Liars.
Until this week.
Liars. There is snow already, and Halloween is on the 31st, right?
When we
Climate
were
change.
kids, there was always snow on the ground when we went out for Halloween.
That's the night it starts.
Anyway, Amparo Goldman is here as well. Welcome, Amparo. So, we are going to start studying this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha.
I'm listening.
What is this week's Parsha? It's Lech Lecha. Lech Lecha. So, Lech Lecha was the commandment from God to Abraham. Leave your land, go to where I'm gonna show you. And we studied a little bit last week that one of the reasons why God took him out of his homeland and into the land of Israel was to meet Noah,
Yes.
to study with Noah, and to go to the academy of Shem and Ever. Best academy ever. And I was like, I've never been there. I've never been to Safed in Israel. I was in Israel, but never to Safed. And it's supposed to be the cave of Shem and Ever, that it exists. So if you go there, you can go to the cave that the rabbis believe was one where Shem and Ever were hidden, because remember, those were considered probably like superhumans, because those were still the ones that they used to live like 1,000 years, right? People around them, they were living, I don't know, maybe 90, 100, 120. So these two, they were hidden from the uninitiated. So they will choose, they will pick the students because it was like a shock otherwise. Anyway, it's all midrash. But anyway, let's see who's here. Randy's here. Mark Phillips is here. Welcome, Mark. And Priscilla Kerr as well. Yeah. Okay, so Maggie says that they have snow in southeast Texas once in a while. Not now. Okay, so let me share my class so we can start starting a little bit. So I won't talk about the Lech Lecha. I won't talk about Abraham leaving. I want to talk about something that it will resonate more with us. And it's the first mentioning in the Torah of taking hostages, right? Hostages.
Not prisoners, but hostages.
Well, they were hostages, although the situation is not necessarily clear because there is not too much detail of what was going on. But let me read and I will explain, okay? This is from the book of Genesis, chapter 14, verses 11 and 12. Let me start with these two verses first, and then I will read a little bit more. So, we are talking about the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yep.
Why they are so important? Because Lot, Abraham's nephew, was living in Sodom,
Yep.
which we should analyze that too. Because how is it possible that somebody who studied ethics and morals with Abraham ended up living in the most immoral city in the Middle East? But that should be for another time. We had a bar mitzvah last week that he did a beautiful drush about it. Beautiful drush about how Lot ended up being there. Okay, so the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, they were attacked by other kings, okay? And here they are called the invaders. The invaders. And the invaders seized all the wealth of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. Okay? That would be okay. That would be normal, right?
Yep.
But they also took Lot. Here it's called the son of Abraham. The son of Abraham's brother. So we know, here we know the connection. And his possession and departed, for he has settled in Sodom. Here we know that these kings came and they took not only the money and all the things from the city, but also took people. Why?
Say that again.
Why will these invaders, why would they take Lot and other people from there?
To be safe.
That could be one thing. Eventually they could be sold. But back in those days, it was also very common to wait to see if they were relatives or other people who will ransom them.
And then they pay to get them back.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very common. It was very common. For a while they wait, and there is no redeemer, you will be sold as a slave.
For flavor.
But they always wait for a redeemer. It was part of the war culture. Okay. So this is an introduction of what's going on. Let's continue. Now I wanted to tell you what happened with Abraham. The Torah will say that somebody was able to escape from Sodom and somehow reached Abraham and told Abraham what happened.
Yes.
And this is interesting because this is just after Lot slapped him in the face. Because remember, Abraham took him like a son, gave him cattle and things to start out, and now Lot became very rich. And now the shepherds of Lot started to fight with the shepherd of Abraham for the land. And Abraham said, you know what, Lot, we know each other for how long? Let's split, okay? You choose first where you want to go, and I will go to the other side. What would be Lot's right answer to that?
You think he would agree? You think that was fair?
But
But obviously not.
I would say, okay, you know what, Abraham? You choose first. Lot said, okay, I take the valley of Sodom, which is supposed to be the best land, the most fertile land of the time. And I don't even want to imagine how Abraham felt at that time. Right? Probably thinking, you little ungrateful punk, right? I treat you like a son, but then again, you learn a few things about Lot, right? He went to Sodom, not just the valley, he went to the city of Sodom. There was something going on there with Lot.
Do you
But
think Abraham was giving him a test to see what the answer
well,
would
but
be?
the whole thing is, at this point, it doesn't really matter, and it's showing us even more wonderful things about Abraham. He didn't care, because next it says, when Abraham heard that his relative has been captured, he took all of the loyal men born in his household, 318, and went after them as far as Dan. Who is them? The invaders.
Yes.
During the night, he and his servants divided themselves up against them, attacked, and chased them to Hobah, north of Damascus. He didn't even try to negotiate with them. Very interesting, because Abraham was very rich. He could say, okay, how much do you want for Lot? Okay.
I don't think we've ever thought of Abraham as being a rich man.
Oh yeah. You have to understand the concept of blessing in the Torah, and it's something that is very, you will hear it many times in some, I will say in some sectors of Judaism, or in some sectors of evangelical churches, where they would insist that God blessing, it's always riches.
Oh, yes, in that concept, yes.
Right?
We're not talking material wealth.
But some people complain, or they are critical of what is called the prosperity gospel, right? If you obey God's commandment, and so if you give your 10%, God is going to prosper with money. That is not a Christian invention. It's part of Judaism as well. We don't talk about that, right? That's exactly what Jacob said to God. Hey, God, whatever you give me, I will give you 10% back to you. So it's up to you. You give me 10, I give you 1. But you give me 100, I give you 10. You give me 1,000, I give you 100. Right? So that always existed. Anyway, so he was blessed, means he was rich. But he didn't even try to negotiate, especially because it looks like right now Abraham is not willing to liberate just Lot. He wanted to free everybody. So he put an army, and without wasting time, he went to try to rescue them. Okay? Let's continue. So during the night, he and his servants divided themselves up against them, attacked and chased them to Hobah, north of Damascus. So he brought back all of the looted property together with his relative Lot, Lot's property, wives and people. But what's it? The people, he liberated everything, and eventually Sodom and Gomorrah wanted to honor Abraham as a hero. I wanted to pay him, and he said, I don't want anything from you. All I want is the satisfaction to know that you are free. Okay? Which is interesting, because in later rabbinic literature, every time that a rabbi will talk about a captive situation, they never talk about, okay, let's put an army and go release them. Never. It's always about, okay, how much are we allowed to pay to rescue somebody? It was a shift. We'll see that in a minute, how there is a shift in rabbinic literature. But let's go back to Abraham, okay? And the way he did it. And he put an army, he went to liberate them. So, why would Abraham do that? Okay? One explanation is because he was, even though the Torah wasn't revealed then, he was following a very specific commandment. Let me read this for you from the Talmud. From where do we learn that if one sees his companion drowning in the sea, or being dragged by an animal, or being attacked by bandits, he is, listen to this word, obligated to come to his rescue. You understand that? Will you say that Lot falls into that category?
Why not?
Right, but basically say drowning in the sea, being dragged by an animal, or being attacked by bandits. Okay? And the subcategories of that. So I would say kidnapping qualifies. So what you say, he's obligated to come to his rescue. Where do we learn that? And then one explanation is from the verse, you shall not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. Doesn't say relative, doesn't say son, it's a neighbor. Okay? Let's continue. But second alternative, but is it derived from this verse? Is it not rather derived from a different verse? From where do we deduce that one is commanded to restore a life in danger of being lost? Will you say that a person who was kidnapped isn't the risk of losing his life?
Yeah.
Okay, so far so good. And then the Talmud continues from the seemingly extraneous words in the verse, and you shall restore it. You shall restore it. In this context, the life, the thing is, you have to understand the original verse from Deuteronomy, the saying, and you shall restore it, and you shall restore it to him, is talking about an
To give
object.
him back his life.
Is talking about an object. So let's say that I
Oh.
find this phone, right?
A different kind of theft.
Then, as a Jew, if I find an object, I have the obligation to do whatever I can to return it, or at least send me the charger and the headphones so I can use, right? So the rabbis use a formula that is called kal vachomer, even more so. So if the Torah says that if you find an object, you have to return it,
Much more so.
even
than
much
a
more
life.
alive.
Much more so than a life.
Okay.
Where do you get that from?
What?
That it's an object.
Oh, because if you go back to Deuteronomy and read the context, it's talking about objects, returning objects. And there is a whole category in halacha about returning objects. And it will say that if you find something, you have to try to return it for a year and a day. Why? Because after a year and a day, the object becomes hefker, which means abandoned. Because I guess the rabbis calculated that after a year, the average human being will lose hope of ever recovering it. Okay? So for a year and a day, you can't do anything about it. In fact, you have to actively try to return it. And then after that, it's yours. So if you have a lost and found in a synagogue, whatever, you have to keep it for a year. And then every year you can donate it after or do a garage sale or whatever.
Yep.
Okay? So, but let's go back to this. Now, because this is when it starts getting more interesting. It says, from the latter verse, I might think that it is only a personal obligation, but that he's not bound to take the trouble of hiring men if he cannot deliver him himself. Therefore, the former verse come to teach that he must. So the Talmud says, so this is halacha, this is the final decision of the rabbis. They said when you're talking about restoring an object, and even more so when restoring a life, if you cannot do it, you have to pay so somebody else will do it. Which is exactly what we are doing with Israel right now. We can't go there and fight. So what do? Send money, right? So this halacha applies to so many different things. This is, for example, let's say that there is somebody who needs a kidney transplant, okay? Are you a compatible donor? You may have an obligation to help. Well, what if I'm not? I still have the obligation to restore life, right? So at least I can try to connect you with somebody else. I have to do something. I have the obligation to do something. So, long story short, when we are in a situation where you know that there is somebody who's been kidnapped or is in danger, we have the obligation to do something. What that something may be depends on your means, your skills, your connections, etc. Okay? Maybe the only thing you can do is to pray. Isn't the hay? That's what you do. Okay? If that's all you can do. So, and then the other problem with what Abraham did is that he put himself in danger to restore somebody else's life. Is that kosher?
Yeah, you have an obligation to save someone else's life.
But not if you're going to die.
Not if your own life is in danger.
And this was also, let's go back to transplant, for example, right? Let's say that, God forbid, you need a heart, and I'm compatible. I can't give you mine.
Right.
I'm saving your life,
Right.
but I'm losing mine in the process, right? So there is a balance.
But Abraham's decision, though, was to gather and earn Thus,
But they said that he went with them.
yeah,
He was a commander.
he took steps
Yeah.
to keep himself safe.
I don't know. We don't read about that. It doesn't say. It doesn't say. But it's, yeah. I understand what you're saying. I think the same thing, right? I mean, did he really put himself in mortal danger to do that, or maybe he was watching from a distance and let the other people do the dirty work and what? Okay. So very interesting. And one more thing about that. Look at the next text. This is also from the Talmud. This is Rabbi Ami. And this is funny because if you're a musician, that looks like an A minor. It's a chord when you're playing guitar or something.
Right.
Sometimes I read that and that's the first thing across my mind. But no, his name was Ami, Rabbi Ami. Rabbi Ami was once taken captive in a dangerous place. Again, he was kidnapped. Okay? Rabbi Yonatan said, let the deceased be interred in his interment garment. Okay? In other words, he was already residing Kaddish. Right? Rabbi Yonatan had resigned himself to Rabbi Ami's imminent demise. Why? 2 reasons. Maybe they didn't have the money to rescue him, or they didn't have the power to go and try to rescue him. Maybe Rabbi Yonatan didn't. But look what happened. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, however, said, I will either kill or be killed. I will go and rescue him by force. Okay? He went, appeased the captors, and secured Rabbi Ami's release. Without going into too much detail, what we learn here is that it looks like if you consider that at least you have 50% chance to be successful, kill or be killed, 50-50, you're allowed to take the risk.
Does appeased mean he negotiated?
But he didn't know that at the beginning, right? Eventually he went and it looks like it was easier than he thought. He was able to negotiate something, but that was part of his strategy. But what if it failed and he was taken captive at the time?
But doesn't that go against the rule of not sacrificing your life for the sake of another? I mean, all of those examples that we have,
But
enough water, like 2 people,
exactly.
and there's only enough water for one of them. You can't both die.
Absolutely, Shelley. You are not allowed to sacrifice your life to save somebody. But that's why, in this case, it was a 50-50 chance. And there is always a question, and sometimes you will need, depends on your level of observance, you may need rabbinic advice if you want to take a risk. For example, can you donate part of your liver to save somebody else? It's not like kidney, it's not like bone marrow. It's a major surgery, right? It's better now. But it used to be a time when the rabbis unanimously said, no, for liver, no. For kidney you can, but not for liver, because you have more chances to die on the table than to save the other person's life. Right? So there is a balance here.
There are degrees of...
It's what is called the balance risk. Depends who you ask, will be different. Is it 70-30? If it's 80-10, right? Or is it like donating? It's not like donating blood. That is most likely 100% chances of success, right? Anyway. But I need you to understand the concept, because this is all the halacha when you are trying to release somebody by force. You are putting either yourself or your soldiers at risk. Look what's happening in Israel. They're waiting at the border because they know the risk. Now, plan B is always payment. Being payment in the form of money, or being payment in the form of, back to Israel, releasing captives, in exchange for, or what I think usually send me this crazy theory that he said, Israel stop firing, we release the hostages, but you have to let all the Hamas people move to Qatar, whatever.
Yeah, that's one of the that's
Right?
one of the propositions on the table.
But again, it's always payment. It's always something you have to give. And the problem is the solution worse than the problem? Because it's not.
Especially since you don't know if the solution
No, because you don't know if
is
these.
going to achieve the desired end.
Yeah, but you don't know if these people. They're not going to go to Disneyland to have a vacation.
That's right.
What are they going to do? Start planning? We don't know. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not an expert, so I don't know. I'm pretty sure they're talking about that, but I want to understand the risk and benefits on the payment model. Okay, so let's move into that right now. I want to start with Maimonides' words, where he wrote extensively about what he understood was the limits of paying the ransom. Okay, whatever that ransom may be. Listen to this. And again, I'm reading just a couple of paragraphs here. First, the ransoming of captives takes precedence over the feeding and clothing of the poor. What does it mean? That whatever money you
Stop
have.
giving tzedakah because you put that money towards
Correct.
the ransom.
Correct. Indeed, there is no greater religious duty than the ransoming of captives. For not only is the captive included in the category of the hungry, the thirsty, and the naked, but his very life is in jeopardy. Do you understand here?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, Maimonides, what he has to do, he was a rationalist. He made a ranking. Who needs more help than others? We find that, like, how do you have the cold blood to do that? Well, somebody has to do it, right?
Degrees
That you have to make it like degrees of need. And he did it because he thought that somebody has to do it. Maimonides was a genius in many things. He likes order. He likes organized things. When he created his book of Halacha, he did something that it was not present in the traditional books of Halacha, like the Mishnah and the Talmud. I thought you will laugh, but it's so common for us. That is an index.
Yeah.
Where you know where to go when you need something, right? Anyway, he likes that kind of thing. Let's continue. He who turns his eyes away from ransoming him transgresses the commandments. Do not harden your heart and shut your hand. Do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor, and he shall not rule ruthlessly over him in your sight. Moreover, he nullifies the positive commandment, you must open your hand. Let him live by your side as your kinsman. Love your fellow as yourself. Rescue those taken off to death, and many other admonitions like these. To sum up, there is no religious duty greater than the ransoming of captives. Okay? So far, so good? Yeah, but if you know Maimonides, he will say to you right now,
Wait a minute.
wait a minute, not so fast. He will probably say it in Spanish, actually. He was from Spain. Sometimes we don't think about that. That when you imagine Maimonides talking, you have to imagine him with a beautiful Spanish accent,
That's right.
right?
And then I've forgotten why he left Spain and went to Cairo.
Oh, he wanted to go to Israel, and he died in the process.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue. Next paragraph of Maimonides, okay? Maimonides continues saying, if the people of the city, having collected money for the building of a synagogue, find themselves confronted with a matter of religious duty, they must divert the money to the latter. If they had already bought stones and beams, they might not sell them in order to fulfill the religious duty, unless it is for the ransoming of captives. Even if they have already brought in the stone and set them up and carved the beams and thus made everything ready for construction, they must nevertheless sell everything, but only if for the ransoming of captives. If, however, they have already completed the erection of the building, they might not sell the synagogue, but they should rather make a new collection from the community for the redemption of those captives. So for Maimonides was a very serious duty. But there is one question that he didn't answer there. And it is, what's the limit?
There's a limit. There is no limit unless the building is completed.
No. What is there a limit? Is there a time when you could say, "Oh, come on, stop it. I won't pay you that"?
I don't think so.
Anybody at home? That's a very interesting question.
Unless you wind
Is
up
there-
impoverishing yourself. and
Is
that's
there
not easy to
any,
do.
any limit to this commandment? Yes.
The rationalist would say you give until you're at the point where you are actually causing harm, causing loss. You're doing something to harm the community.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That's the utilitarian argument that I would assume would appeal to Maimonides.
Yeah. You have to be careful not to reach a point where you deplete your resources so badly that you are harming your own community. But yes, again, you cannot take one life to restore another, right?
So there's a fine line that cannot be crossed.
Yeah. Now Maimonides doesn't put it here because it was already dealt with in the Mishnah. Listen to this. Mishnah, Masechet Gittin 4:6. The Mishnah says, captives may not be ransomed for more than their value for the sake of social order.
What's the value of a human life?
That's another question. And what is social order? Right?
Social order so that there isn't murder and mayhem on the streets?
Nevertheless, it's very interesting. Very interesting. Some people try to read this literally and in the right context. They will say their value is if, let's say, you don't pay and they are going to be sold as slaves, that's the value. But otherwise, I would say, why would I pay you ransom? If I don't pay you, you're going to sell them, and then I go and buy them in the market. Right? So basically, the mission, part of negotiation is that you should never pay more than the value, otherwise they are trying to take advantage of you. It might be a strategy that it might become dangerous in the future. They said, hey, the Jews pay double, go kidnap more Jews. And that could also explain a little bit what social order may mean here. But social order could also mean depleting the community from resources. So this is just the Mishnah. And if you know anything about rabbinic structure, if you take the Talmud starts with Mishnah, and then you have the Gemara. The Gemara is a discussion of the Mishnah. Okay?
So we're going to have the conversation back.
So if we are having this discussion about this Mishnah, can you imagine the rabbis when they read it? So let me continue now with what the rabbis said. A little bit of what the rabbis said about that. Okay?
Yep.
So now the Gemara about it in the Babylonian Talmud. So the question was raised: does this social order derive from concern over imposing too heavy a burden? It's called duchka de tzibura. Okay, that's the Aramaic word for the imposing a burden. It's like an extreme tax or something that is considered,
Too heavy to bear.
too heavy. So, on the community or from concern, lest we encourage de la ligrevu, bandits to kidnap people and offer them for ransom. This is very interesting because some people say that that's what Hamas is doing in Israel. Hey, we did it a few times before. Every time we kidnap one soldier, they give 1,000 terrorists, right? Let's do it again. And that was, I don't know if you remember, every time that there is something like that with Hamas or was Hezbollah, but that's what many people in Israel say, hold on a minute, right? This is not new, and there is yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And in a minute, we are going to see also rabbis arguing, using halacha, trying to support one argument and the other. Some rabbis would say yes, some rabbis would say no, and they both will present halacha and quote scripture to prove their point, which makes it more difficult at the end of the day. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so come and hear, continues the Talmud. Levi by Darga ransomed his daughter for 13,000 dinars of gold. That's supposed to be like way above.
More than her bride price?
Yeah. Abaye said, but who says that he acted with the consent of the sages? Yeah, you're quoting an example, but who knows if that example was approved by the rabbis? Because at the end of the day, the rabbis can give you their opinion, but you will do whatever you feel is right for you. It's your money, right? And I know, unfortunately, by you doing it with your own money, you can put the whole community at risk, because next time will be somebody else and it will be up to that person, money or not. Okay?
Policy about negotiating with kidnappers, though, is dependent on politics and criminology, not halacha.
Well, but if you are talking about specifically Israel, right, when it is a Jewish state, after all, every time that something like this happens, the voices of the rabbis are very loud.
Yes, they are.
And they give their opinion. Of course, the state will do whatever they want to do, but they voice their opinion. And there are many things also that speaks to the soldiers, right? If you're an observant Jew and you are being taken prisoner, and this is something that is beyond the scope of the class, but can you commit suicide before you are taken prisoner? They are responsible about that. And so forth. If I am an observant Jew, right, and I see that you're being taken prisoner, can I kill you before they take you? Oh.
You can't kill him and you
Whoa,
can't
whoa,
kill
whoa, whoa!
yourself.
I don't want to answer that question because it's way too complex. And I can tell you a little bit that Rabbi Ben Arosh told me that he was right now in Israel, part of a panel, discussing those things. Right? It's necessary.
Scary.
Yes, Clyde said we can't hear the people at the community center they are saying, but that's why I'm trying to repeat all the time what they are saying. Okay, I'll do my best to repeat. Okay. So again, it ends. Perhaps he acted against the will of the sages anyway. So let's continue. Now, let's continue with the Talmud. Listen to this. Our rabbis have taught. Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananiah once happened to go to the great city of Rome, and he was told that in the prison there was a child with beautiful eyes and curly locks. He went and stood at the doorway of the prison and said, "Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers?" Quoting Isaiah. The same child answered, "It is not the Lord again whom we have seen, and in whose ways we will not walk, and unto whose Torah they were not obedient." And he said, "I am confident that this one will be a teacher in Israel. I swear that I will not budge from here before I ransom him, whatever price may be demanded." Okay? It is reported that he did not leave the spot before he had ransomed him at a high figure, nor did many days pass before he became a teacher in Israel. Who was the child? Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha. Great rabbi. So here we have another example, but the difference here, and this will start getting complicated, and that is that it looks like it depends who's been taken prisoner, right? I feel like this Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, did like a character analysis of who the prisoner was. Was it because he was a child, right? Was it because he saw some potential, right? It's interesting, but nevertheless becomes.
It's a philosophy argument, a child versus an old man.
Yeah.
Who's got more worth and more potential.
But again, it's shocking to me that it's almost like everybody forgot the biblical precedent and said, okay, he's there. Why don't I hire, 3, 4 guys, will sneak into the place and release him, right? It's never talked in those terms anymore, the Talmud. And I understand it's under Rome, maybe it was too difficult, right? But not unheard that people try to do that when somebody gets in prison. But nevertheless, all the discussions that I found were all involving negotiation. But the fact here is that we have another example of we pay whatever we have to. Okay? Nobody's left behind.
It opens the whole argument of what's the value of a human life.
Of course. Now, again, Tosafot, this is a commentary. It's a commentary about Rashi comments. It said, whoever price may be demanded. Let's explain that. What does it mean? It said, when the captive is in mortal danger, we are to offer ransom even more than his value. So here, actually, we have another piece of the puzzle to say when yes, when no, because it's almost like not every kidnapped individual will be in the same conditions. Right? Not everybody will be in the same condition. So is the person in mortal danger right now? Because there were many cases back in the day that they were like women. They will be taken prisoner and put in a harem to see if somebody will come. But meanwhile, they were not really prisoners, right? So this is. Do we know?
Who are you and what were you before you became a captive?
Do we know that?
What value do you have?
But let's think about in Israel, for example. We know that they're in mortal danger.
No question.
If it's not by Hamas, maybe a bomb come there. Maybe there will be collateral when. So basically, they're in mortal danger, and the Talmud already dealt with that. They're mortal danger. And you have to do. Listen to this. It says, Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania ransomed the child at a great expense because he was unusually knowledgeable. Or perhaps during the period of the destruction of the temple, the problem of stimulating further kidnappings is not pertinent. So they will say, okay, two things, because here they're trying to guess why he paid that money. So maybe it was specifically because who the child was. Or maybe they pay whatever they have to pay because in those days you're not incentivizing the other side to kidnap more people to get more money. It was a situation of a child who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He got caught. Now they are asking for money to release him. But if you pay that money, it's not that the Romans are going to go start kidnapping people to get the money. Okay? So, but what they say is, before you do anything, you have to stop and analyze the context of your reality, because every reality is different, and every outcome of your attempts to pay ransom will be different. We see it all the time. Let's say the Jewish community in Colombia or in Mexico, they have a task force to deal with kidnaps, because they are the cartels many times kidnap Jews. They're famous for paying, right? But all the negotiations are done by the professional task force there. And the thing is, if they pay too much or too little, whatever, you will know that they will try to get more people anyway. It's not that you're going to incentivize them to kidnap more. They are going to do it regardless.
For business.
Sorry?
For business.
Yeah. So you have to analyze every scenario, okay? Now, I want to move into Shulchan Aruch. For now, we were talking about the Talmud, right? 2,000 years ago. Now, Shulchan Aruch is around 1500s.
Yeah.
So,
Almost modern by comparison.
so now is when all these laws started to get shape and it started to be formalized. It's not a discussion anymore. Now it's a straight answer. Shulchan Aruch said, captives may not be ransomed for more than their value for the sake of social order, so that the abductors may not be encouraged to kidnap additional victims. Make it very clear. They are not sugarcoating it. But one might ransom himself using all the means at his disposal.
You can ransom yourself.
Well, yeah, your family can take
Oh,
your
I see
money
what you're saying.
to ransom you. One may also offer a large ransom for a Torah sage. I guess he was afraid. Just the one who wrote the Shulchan Aruch, he was afraid that he may be
It might not be
taking
worth
ransom.
as much as the next
He
time,
put
yeah.
you know, like a safety net there, just in case. If he's a Torah scholar, you have to pay whatever it takes. Anyway, I say one may also offer a large ransom for a Torah sage, or even if he's not a Torah sage, but just a sharp student with the potential for greatness. Okay? Why would you say that? Because of the text that I showed you before, the kid. Anyway, but this is the closest thing to modern times that I found. Like in the form of like formal halakha, formal Jewish law, what to do. But now, let's come a little closer to us, okay? 1980s. Rabbi Abraham Yitzhak Halevi Kilav. It says, furthermore, it seems that nowadays, when terrorists declare their desire to kidnap and murder Jews, and, in fact, act upon these declarations without any compassion for the victims, whether men, women, or children, that releasing terrorists is actual danger and is therefore forbidden. This is true even according to those who maintain that the prohibition is based on the burden imposed on the community, since the danger here is tangible and arises immediately upon the release. Okay? Do you understand what he's saying here, right? Added to this is the fact that they join the forces that battle us from their countries with long-range weaponry and thus represent a threat, even if they don't actually penetrate our borders. This is 1980s. And it looks like it was written yesterday. Furthermore, their compatriots will not hesitate to act against us, knowing that they don't endanger their lives if they fall captives, since they will be released soon thereafter. We are also in a permanent state of war with them, which cannot be halted because of danger to the soldiers. If, therefore, seems that it is forbidden to release terrorists and murderers in exchange for captives, not just an exchange of many terrorists for one Jew, but even 1-for-1 because of the future danger. Now it's interesting, he's talking about soldiers here. Okay? But he's
Yes.
already presenting
Yeah.
a very specific understanding or piece of advice of what should be done. Okay?
We know that some of the terrorists identified with October the 7th were in Israeli jails.
Of course. Of course. But then, let's make it even more complicated. Hamas leader was treated from brain tumor at an Israeli hospital,
Yes.
right? Anyway. So
Now in
Clyde,
Moscow talking to people.
sorry, Clyde has a question. So when Israel ransomed the Gilad Shalit for thousands of prisoners, what the rabbi said, well, that's what the rabbis are saying. Don't do it, because this is what is going to happen.
But
I
they
think
did it anyway.
this is what it is. Some of the people who came October 7th, when they were released, the Shalit deal,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Now, let me bring you another view. Okay, Rabbi Shmuel Tanchon Rubinstein, another Orthodox rabbi, 1990s. If we were going to compare the case of releasing terrorists with the law of not ransoming captives beyond their value, we should permit the release of one terrorist in return for one captive, but not to release hundreds of terrorists in exchange for 2 or 3 soldiers in captivity, as their malicious organizations demand. The people have already reacted to the Jibril deal. This was in 1985 during Shimon Peres. He was the one who allowed this to happen. Okay. So the people have already reacted to the Jibril deal, claiming that the government made a terrible mistake in releasing hundreds of terrorists in exchange for 2 of our soldiers, especially considering the fact that the released terrorists returned to resume murdering our soldiers and civilians. I can't read this, I have to move it. Hold on a minute, guys. On the other hand, what the value do a hun... Oh, I can't read it. I will, hold on. On the other hand, what the value do 100 generate, contemptible terrorists have in comparison to one of our soldiers in captivity, whose life is more precious than 100 of theirs. Okay? How can this exchange be considered more than their value? Is a terrorist considered of equal value to one of our soldiers? You know, so this rabbi is now defining what you asked Rocky before. You know, who decides the value? This exchange cannot be included in the concept of their value. This is particularly true given the tradition of the IDF never to abandon even one prisoner of war, and an entire battalion it put at risk to save one prisoner from the enemy. This is the feeling that guides the Israeli soldier who never despairs while in captivity, because he is secure in the knowledge that we will come to his rescue at any price. After all, as our emissary, he embarked on a mission to fight to protect our country and to secure our lives. It is as though we made a sacred promise that we will never abandon or forsake him under any circumstances. Yeah. And there are many others. We won't have time to go, but it goes one side or
They
the
keep
other.
repeating that today even.
Yeah. So the answer, there is no answer. There is no answer, and this is what makes it more complicated, because there are arguments for one side or the other. So, are you not going to save one life now out of fear that maybe in the future you're going to put another one at risk, right? When you have the opportunity to save a life now, for sure.
But damned if they do and damned if they don't.
So it's very complex. It's very complex. But again, I'm shocked that we kind of forget how the story began with Abraham going and taking it. You say, why do you bother negotiating if you know what is going to happen, right? And he went and took it. So, but it's also another thing that I guess is contemplated in Israel right now. So you have the three opinions: no, yes, and let's go take it by force. And it's not up to us to make a decision. Just wanted to share with you what the rabbis say about it, and then at least you have a little bit more context of the opinions that have been voiced in Israel, especially when you mix halacha into the mix. Okay? So yeah. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, everyone at home. Remember, thank you. Remember, the class will be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time. So if you missed any part, you can go there. You can catch it again. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe. Hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.